Packed house tonight at the corner of food and fun here in Terre Haute, Indiana. It's the Indiana State Coaches Show, live from 7th and Elm. Great to have you with us, everybody. I'm Luke Martin, voice of the Sycamores, alongside head football coach Curt Mallory. We got a great show for you tonight. Josh Christensen, head coach of Indiana State Women's Swim and Dive, will join us later on. Khalif Copeland, Tank, will join us, the safety on the Indiana State football team, as well as Kyle Hoke. He will join us, the safeties coach. But first with the head coach, the victorious head coach over the weekend, Curt Mallory. Coach, I got to tell you, it's a lot of fun to be here on Monday nights after wins.
Oh, no question. Yeah, it's great to get that first one, and then it's on to the next one.
I know that's been a big part of it this week, and just coming back for your team, it's one game, you know, and that's exactly what your message was on the opposite end a week ago against Dayton. It's just one game. Do you really have to strike that much of a balance? Of course, you're going to be reviewing film, you're going to be looking back at what you did Saturday, but now it's starting to look forward towards Eastern Illinois on Saturday.
Well, I think you look back what kind of week we had leading up to the Eastern Kentucky game, and it started on Sunday leading all the way up to game day, and there was less distractions, and they were able to take care of their business throughout the week, and of course they were ready to perform on Saturday, and we got the win.
19-7 was the final score on Saturday at Memorial Stadium, and it was a game for the most part you really dominated, especially there early in the ball game. Both defenses were kind of going back and forth. As that first half was going on, when they were kind of throwing punches defensively, your group is throwing punches defensively. How did you feel your offense adjusted to eventually finally being able to get some production there before you went into the locker room?
Well, I thought, we went into the game knowing that they were going to be able to run the football and that they had a fine running team, but so do we. And it was going to be back and forth, and we were going to have to outrush them. We had a lot of respect for their defense, but our defense flew around and played extremely well. And then we knew on special teams it was going to be a big day for field position, and our special teams did a phenomenal job with that part of it. And in the end of the day, we got the win.
I think there's no question, running the football, that is your identity. You don't hide away from it. You're never going to hide away from it. You guys as a team on Saturday rushed for 215 yards. Peterson Curlegrand, yet again, another 100-yard rushing day. He had 132. I asked you this a week ago you weren't surprised when Petey had the day he did against Dayton. I know you're not surprised the day he had over the weekend. What makes Petey click? What makes him tick? What makes him such a shifty back that I get to describe on Saturdays and that fans get to watch?
Well, I think his legs are always moving, and he's a tough runner. When we recruited him, one of the comments that were made by the local high school coaches in Fort Wayne was how tough he was, and that he just kept taking a pounding but just kept going, and that's exactly how he's performed. He's a very unselfish young man. We've asked him to do a lot of different things, and started off as a running back, moving to defense, back to offense, and now we found his home. He's back at offense and doing a tremendous job for us.
Mentioned being able to run the football, passing the football. Ryan was 11-18 through the air for 133 yards. No passing touchdowns over the weekend. You've talked about how you want to see that passing game continue to evolve. I think at times maybe some of the fans are a little worried from the passing perspective so far through the year, but the one thing I think you got to remember too, last year, your group did not have any receiving touchdowns, no passing touchdowns until South Dakota State, which was week 5. So you had no passing touchdowns through the first 4 weeks of the season last year. I think we all saw that the offense was fine and could throw the football later in the year. Still feel that way this year, even though maybe the passing numbers may not be exactly what you want, but you obviously like the pieces that you have that will ultimately, hopefully, bring that to fruition.
Well, I think absolutely. I think you know who you are. And what your identity is. Our identity is going to run the football. If you can run the football, it's going to open up a lot of other things. And it's always going to start with who you are. And running the football, the pass game is going to come. The first half, there were some adjustments. And our coaches on the offensive side and Ryan do a great job at halftime. What do you like? What are you seeing out there? Okay, let's narrow it down. And let's go back to what we're seeing. And the result was exactly that. Things started to calm down, slow down for him in the second half, and you could see him a lot more comfortable.
Offensively, do you want to see maybe the tight ends get a little bit more involved? I know before the year you really liked, not that they're obviously not involved now, they are in other roles, but I know you were really high on the offseason that Zach Larkin really had. said this could be a year that could springboard him into an all-conference type of tight end. I don't think any of our tight ends have been targeted yet with specific passes during games. Do you want to see that aspect of the offense maybe evolve a little bit as you go along?
Well, I think it'll come. To force it, it'll come. They're going to be a big part of our offense. They always have been. But I think what you're seeing a young man like Henry Woodcock really coming on. You mentioned Zach Larkin, who I think someday will be an all-conference player for us, and you got Matei Thomas. And so those are three guys we're going to have for the next couple of years.
Head coach Curt Mallory joins us here at 7th and Elm, corner of Food and Fun, and Terre Haute, live for the Indiana State Coaches Show, recapping the win against Eastern Kentucky. Inoke Moala was named Defensive Player of the Week in the Valley over the weekend. It's the second player you've had earn that honor so far through this season. Noakes has battled through a lot. A year ago, getting hurt against UNI, had to miss the rest of the year. He's always kind of had a year where he's dealt with some sort of injury since you've been around him in 2017. How nice is it to see Inoke right now? One, stay healthy, knock on wood, everybody in here, and two, to be able to have the production that he's doing right now.
Well, before he got hurt last year, that's what you saw. I mean, he was playing at a very high level. He got hurt in the Northern Iowa game. He forced a fumble, jumped on it, and broke his wrist. And, of course, missed the rest of the year, and it kept him from spring ball. So getting him back is a force. Now, we can move him around, cause mismatches, and you saw that, and our defensive coach has done an outstanding job of putting him maybe over a guard or a center or over a tackle. And when you got a guy like that, he's hard to find.
I know you respect all of your coaches, and we'll have Mark Smith on later on in the fall. I know he deserves a lot of credit, too, with what he's able to do, not just with Inoke, but you think of Henrik Barnt, who had a really good game over the weekend. Lucas Hunter, who's a freshman who's really starting to develop and be a name that we talk about. Caleb Brewer, Michael Gant. Why is it that those guys develop so well under Coach Smith, and why was Coach Smith the guy you brought in to be able to tap into guys like that and make them into what they are for you now?
Well, I think Coach Smith is an unbelievable teacher. I had an opportunity to work with Mark at the University of Michigan. I was the secondary coach, and Mark was the linebacker coach for the first 3 years we were together, and then the last year back to D-line. So I've got a chance to work with him and work with him on a daily basis and see what he brings and just see his technique and his teaching ability. And you see his players play to that level. And we've talked all along that we're gonna have strength in numbers, and we've got a lot of young men that are playing right now at a high level up front.
One of the coaches we'll talk to later on the show, Kyle Hoke. Of course, the last name, you worked with Brady during your time in your coaching career, which is his uncle. I know Kyle's a guy you really wanted to bring on and ultimately had that chance. So when you brought him on this spring, what do you like about Kyle and what he's really brought to that safety room and being able to impact guys like Khalif, who we'll talk to here in a bit?
Well, again, a very good teacher. I'm always looking at, what kind of men they are, what kind of husbands they are, what kind of fathers they are, and what kind of teachers they are. And, Kyle is a tremendous young man. I've known the family for a long, long time. I've known Kyle for a long time, and he was a perfect fit, and he's jumped right in and has done a great job with that secondary.
There are always personalities on a team I think people get drawn to because of whether it's just how they interact with everybody on a day-to-day basis, and those individuals who seem always bring the good side out of people. Khalif is one of those, my eyes, just somebody you're around. He brings up the energy in the room. How big has it been to have him back after I know he was going to provide a big role a year ago for your team, and unfortunately in that last fall scrimmage ended up getting an injury that knocked him out for the year?
He played a little bit as a freshman, and a lot of guys played as freshmen. Of course, we didn't win a whole lot of games that first year, but he got a lot of good experience. And his role was going to increase his sophomore year, and had a Liz Frank injury, which is a pretty severe injury. That's about an 8-month recovery, and wasn't easy. And but here's a young man that fought through it, battled through it, and is playing at a very high level. And the thing you can say about Khalif is he can play any position in the back end. He plays nickel, he plays safety, and if we got into a pinch, he could jump out at corner. So he's got the ability to do a lot of things for us.
Before we preview Eastern Illinois later on the show with you, just your final thoughts on Eastern Kentucky and when you meet with your team tomorrow and you go throughout preparation, the biggest thing you want them to take away and close the book on them and focus on the Panthers.
Well, that's exactly what we did yesterday. You know, we watched the film, we learned from it, and we're ready to move on. We've game planned today as a staff. The players, today's their academic day, so solely academics, and then tomorrow's a work day. And so it's time to move on to the next. And this is a big rivalry game, and we're excited to be back home again.
Well, Coach, we'll preview the Panthers to close out the show with you, so go take a little break, all right?
All right, thanks.
All right, that was head coach Curt Mallory. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Indiana State women's swim and dive coach Josh Christensen is our guest. You're listening to Indiana State Coaches Show live from 7th and Elm from Indiana State Athletics. The Indiana State Coaches Show live from 7th and Elm rolls on. Big thanks to Coach Mallory for joining us to start off the show. And Indiana State women's swim and diving, their season got underway over this weekend for a few of the swimmers. The season will continue to ramp up as we go along. Josh Christensen, who enters his second year here at Indiana State, joins us here on the Coaches Show. Josh, thanks so much for coming out tonight. I'm sure this year, getting into year two, maybe a little bit less stressful than year one, knowing at least the timetable that you've had to get adjusted.
Yeah, very different start to the year. I was telling Carly for the first 6 months I was here, I actually lived in the townhouse right behind 7th and Elm here. So last year was kind of hit the ground running and kind of flying by the seat of our pants to a certain extent. So going into this year, a lot more planned out, knowing the whole team as returners and having a great group of freshmen is really exciting.
You mentioned that this was a program that you were really excited to be a part of. It was a job that was one that you wanted. Why was that? What stood out about this job prior to getting here and now knowing what you do after a year?
Well, one, I mean, it's the newest Division I women's swimming and diving program in the country, so that's really cool. Just to be part of a program that's new, seeing some growth in the sport at the Division I level is really exciting. Personally, family-wise, my wife's from Kokomo. All her family still lives in Indiana, so with us, with young kids, just being close to family, this past year has been awesome. So that was a huge draw. So I think the combination of those two things was just a really good fit for us and for my family.
And you mentioned your family. I know you got some little ones back home that probably keep your energy going a little bit, don't they?
Yeah, it's pretty rambunctious. 3 boys, 6, 3, and 2. So, I coach a women's only team that go home and wrestle the boys. So it's a pretty good balance there, too.
I'm sure probably at times maybe the boys are a little bit tougher than your team on campus, or is it vice versa a little bit?
Oh, they are absolutely tougher. Yeah. The team's awesome, and I love showing up to practice every day. That's the highlight of my day because of who they are and their work ethic and their passion for the program and for each other. So they're awesome to work with.
For those that don't know in this room, I think an accomplishment, we always talk about so much about our athletes as athletes, but I think at times don't always get the student aspect in there as much as you should. And your team GPA last semester in the spring was not only the highest at Indiana State, it was the highest in the nation. Beat out Stanford, beat out every other program in the country. I know that one speaks volumes that they must have a smart head coach, but also give credit to your team and the work that they've done to improve, not just in the pool, but all they do outside of it, because they don't have easy majors either, by the way.
No, it was a huge accomplishment, and I think it says a lot about the quality of the people on our team and their work ethic, their commitment to what they're doing in the classroom. I mean, we've got pre-med majors that are applying to med school right now. We actually have a girl that's got 2 pharmacy school interviews this week that she's found out about recently and is going to those. So they've done a great job. I mean, they're the support staff. Michelle Stodden, who works in our academic advisor, does a tremendous job. So the support they have from the university and the athletic department is a huge part of that. But, we kind of put out that goal in January as we're going into second semester of, hey, 3.75 would be really cool. And in my mind, I was thinking, well, if we're anywhere close to that, that's awesome. And they did the work, hit it right on the nose, and I knew it was going to end up being close and end up being the highest in the country. So it was definitely really cool and something that they can really be proud of.
Josh Christensen is our guest, the head coach of Indiana State women's swimming and diving. Some of those things, too, when you got the job so late, maybe not necessarily have a ton of time to be able to put your staff together. I know you do have new additions this year. How important has that been? Not that last year wasn't smooth, because it really was, or as smooth as it could be, about how those new additions have really been able to filter in for your team this year.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited about where we're at with as far as coaching staff goes. Nikki Fendison has come on the end of the summer, and she has hit the ground running. She's got tons of energy, done a great job with recruiting and organization, and she's a great teacher and really, done a lot with technique feedback already with our program. And the cool thing is Melissa Geeson, who was my assistant coach last year and did a fantastic job, and she's one of the reasons everything was so smooth last year. Just she was already in Terre Haute, knew the area, and that helped me tremendously, and she did fantastic with recruiting, and that really shows up with our recruiting class, our freshmen this year. But she stayed on as a volunteer assistant as well. So, that combination's been awesome already in just a month in, and the options we have and just the people we have working with our student athletes. And then Teresa Hall, who was my dive coach actually at Fresno Pacific, has come on as our dive coach here. And, I worked with her for 6 years at FPU, and she's just a coach. Some people just, they're just a mentor, they're a leader, they're a coach. That's who they are. That's kind of deeply rooted in who they are as a person, and that's who Teresa is. So she's great for our divers. She's great for our whole program. So could not be more excited kind of coaching staff where things are at right now.
What's the expectation for your group this year when you've met with them and you go through meetings? Because your office is just down from mine, and I can always walk by, whether it's going to lunch, going somewhere, and you always have somebody in your office preparing for this year. What is the collective group kind of goal that you guys have?
We want to compete for a conference championship. I think we, with what we have in terms of returners and freshmen and just kind of depth, we feel like we have an opportunity to do that. Our conference is going to get a lot better, and it is already. Seeing that there's a lot of new coaches in the conference. You're seeing the kind of a next level of recruit, which is exciting. So it's going to be really competitive. I think Missouri State and Southern Illinois have really had a stranglehold on things. I think the last team to win outside of those two was like 2001. So it's no easy task, but we just want to compete. And I think that's the cool thing about our team. It's the way I'm wired too. Like, we just want to get in there and compete, and I think we're in a position now where we can truly say we're competing to win the conference. And come February, we want to just go out there, throw down, and leave our best in the pool.
You mentioned competing. Over the weekend you had a few able to go out to the open water meet in Lawrence, Kansas, finished 5th in the meet, even over some programs, some bigger programs like Nebraska. What's been the biggest thing when you look at your group and what you found out over the weekend?
Yeah, that was a really cool opportunity. We haven't done that before, gone to the Open Water Championship meet. Definitely a different format than what we usually do. But I think that really showcased what will be kind of our strength throughout the year, which is our depth. All 5 ladies were in the top, I think, 28 finishers. So we did it on depth, and I think that's going to be kind of the theme throughout the year, is just the balance and depth we have in our team.
Balance and depth. What's going to be the key to maintaining that as you go throughout this year, and in order to be able to reach those goals, because your championships, will obviously be much later, I think in January and February?
Yeah, well, we all chose one word kind of as our word for the year, and my word was patient. And I think that's what we're trying to do with this season, is we're just trying to take it one day, one training session, 1 week at a time, and just kind of stack really good quality work each day. And I think if we do that, already seeing great things, the leadership from our upperclassmen and the buy-in from our freshmen, those two things are where they need to be. And I think if we just keep, stacking, week after week of quality work, I think, come February, we're gonna have a shot.
Coach Christensen, thanks so much for joining us, and good luck this year. You've done a heck of a job since coming in, and keep it up. Thanks, Josh. Once again, that was Josh Christensen. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Kyle Hoke will be our guest, the safeties coach for Indiana State football. You're listening to Indiana State Coaches Show live from 7th and Elm. Welcome back to 7th and Elm, Corner Food and Fun, Indiana State Coaches Show rolls along. Big thank you to Josh Christensen, who just joined us for Indiana State Women's Swimming and Diving. We'll jump back over to the football gridiron. Kyle Hoke, the safeties coach for Indiana State, in his first year here with Sycamore Football, is our guest. Kyle, always good to see you out on the practice field. I'm sure probably walking around the office, a few more smiles, I know, after a W compared to the last couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Always easier to come in and make corrections after a win than is a loss.
What's been the biggest, even though the last 2 weeks prior to the win didn't go in the win column, what has you and this team. Still excited about what you guys can accomplish this year?
I think we're just kind of focused on taking it step by step, going week by week. Coach Mallory always talks about game week being all week and just taking each day in itself as a season, so working to improve ourselves that way.
We were talking before you came on air. You were actually a senior at Ball State, just finishing up your playing days when I was a freshman going into Ball State for my undergrad. Of course, your family with a lot of Ball State ties, with your dad obviously playing at Ball State. Of course, your uncle Brady, also played at Ball State and was the head coach at Ball State, and obviously worked with Coach Mallory and all the guys you work with today. I know that kind of explains the connection that you have with this staff, but just kind of take those folks through that maybe don't know what your connection was here and how you got here.
Yeah, obviously, I know Coach Mallory. He worked for my uncle at Michigan. I worked with him at summer camps a lot of times. I think a couple summers in a row. We used to go over there when I was a GA at Western Michigan, actually, and had the opportunity to go sit in the staff room with Coach Mallory, Greg Madison. And then, obviously, you guys were talking about Coach Smith earlier. Coach Smith actually coached me my freshman year at Ball State. So I'm very familiar with Smitty and his whole family. So it goes back pretty deep. And then, obviously, Coach Switzer, I played with at Ball State as well. So.
What's it like now when you get into those staff meetings and you see guys like Switz, who was a teammate of yours, to Coach Smith, who was a coach of yours, to now know that you're living your dream of being a coach and you're doing it with people that you've known for a long time?
Yeah, I think it just makes it that much more fun, really. I mean, you get in there and you get to be around people that just you're comfortable around. You can all be on the same page, working together. I think it just makes the whole staff just come together a lot closer and be able to just work together better, really.
So now being in Terre Haute here your first year, has it been everything you thought it would be, coming over and being part of this staff and getting to work with the guys that you do every day in the safeties room?
Yeah, it's been awesome. I was really fortunate to have a group of guys in a safety position room that had a lot of good leadership in there, so that part of it's been really easy. And just seeing how this place has gone from the first day that Coach Mallory stepped on campus and how hard he works to make the changes and get the players what they deserve and how he continuously does that, it's been something that I think I'll definitely take away from here, and I think it's been awesome to see and continue to see.
Guy you get to work under right now, defensive coordinator Brad Wilson, who we had on the show a couple weeks ago. When I talk to a lot of the guys, they always bring up the intensity that Brad brings each and every day. What has been the main thing that you've learned from Coach Wilson in your short time underneath him?
Yeah, just the intensity that he brings, I think, is something that I think everyone kind of feeds off of, and I think he definitely is that definite leader in terms of just an emotional leader for sure. So I think that's definitely a quality he has.
And there's no question Logan and Brady, they have that intensity too, don't they?
You can see it coming a little bit. It's a little bit there. I got to catch a baseball game and see how they do. But.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see how they do later on. We'll get the camera there too. We'll get some highlights for Brady and Logan. Kyle Hoke is our guest, safeties coach for Indiana State. Indiana State getting ready for Eastern Illinois this weekend. Tank, we'll talk to him in the next segment, Khalif. He's a guy that you've just worked with this year, but you mentioned it's a group, though, that you really enjoy, and you have a lot of leadership, whether it's Michael Thomas, who maybe not necessarily has played a ton at that position, but, of course, has played a lot here at Indiana State.
Absolutely.
Denzel Bonner, who started a year ago, who's been able to filter back in. But what is the biggest strength of your unit as a whole?
Honestly, I think it's just how well they all get along together. I mean, they're all coaching each other when they're out there. Every one of them, for the most part, knows every position, so they all know what's going on. They can help out in certain situations. Using Khalif in his example, he adds a ton of value because, he can be thrown in at nickel. He can play both safety spots. He plays the dime. And like Coach said earlier, if we got into a pinch and he had to go to corner, he could jump out there and do that. So I think I got a number of guys like that who all are really just football junkies. They like the X's and O's part of it. They like learning about the new techniques. And I think once you have some buy-in like that from a position group and players, I think you can do just about anything.
And you've been around it as a player and now as a coach. Speak of the rarity of having such a room where you can do that, because sometimes it's not that you don't have a deep room, just sometimes you have guys who are good at doing a certain thing and that's what they're really good at. But it does seem like you have Tank, whether it's Ty Hambright, whoever it is, it seems like you do have a room where you can shuffle around. It's not shuffling around to go, I don't know where to put them.
Right.
I'm shuffling around because I can shuffle them around.
Yeah, I think it speaks to those guys and just how they get along with each other and just their commitment to this team. I think each one of them, no matter what role it is, they want to have the opportunity to help out, and I think they see that knowing more and being able to do it more is that opportunity. So they really buy into that.
When you think back to your playing days at Ball State, did you ever have a cool nickname like Tank? Did you ever have like a nickname when you play? Or is it one that you can maybe even say on the radio? I don't know if that's possible, but did Kyle Hoke have a nickname back when he played?
You gotta play a lot more to have a cool nickname, and I didn't do that. So
You have to play a little bit more to get a nickname, I guess. Well, Tank obviously has that one here for us. But as you move forward, rivalry games are always what makes this sport so much fun. And this weekend, you guys get an opportunity to do that with Eastern Illinois, a regional rival. Just from your perspective, when you go into it for the first time, what are you most excited about now, kind of being able to write another chapter in what's been a very long rivalry between these two teams?
yeah, I think that the thing that excites me the most is just the opportunity to go make a mark on the rivalry. Coach Mallory kind of went through the history of the series with the team yesterday in the team meeting, and I think that kind of got a lot of people locked in and kind of put it in perspective about what needs to go and what needs to go be done on Saturday. So I think that part of it is what excites me.
And as you guys, I know, will continue to prep with your team tomorrow, with it being the first practice day of the week. Bottom line, where do you want to see your group make that improvement from what you've done so far through 3 games and make that jump this weekend against Eastern?
Yeah, I think the improvement they need to make is just doing what they do and doing it a little better, doing it a little harder, doing it a little longer. I think we're all on the same page in terms of what they have to do and when they have to do it. Just being consistent and doing that over time that I think is the difficult part for players sometimes.
Coach Hoke, always appreciate the time, buddy. Good to see you.
All right, thank you.
That was Kyle Hoke here live from 7th and Elm. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Khalif Copeland. You've heard his name throughout the show a lot tonight. Tank will be our guest when we return. You're listening to the Indiana State Coaches Show live from 7th and Elm. This is Indiana State Athletics. Part of the show everybody's been ready for. Khalif Copeland, our guest here on the Indiana State Coaches Show live from 7th and Elm, corner of Food and Fun. Tank, buddy, it's always good to see your smiling face. I told Coach Mallory, as we were talking the first segment, there's always guys on a team that just bring that personality and a great personality out of people, and you're definitely one of them. How's this year been for you now, knowing that you're back, you're healthy, number one, being able to be out there with your teammates each and every week?
It's exciting. Like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe because being out for so long is like watching just kind of, it kind of ate at me. So being back is just, I'm thankful. You know what I'm saying? Every day is just another day to work with my brothers. I don't know what to say, really. It's just exciting.
Well, you mentioned that, it's been a long road back for you because, 2 years ago in the 0-11 season, even though the wins weren't there, that was a great experience for you because you got in and you got to play a lot, especially towards the tail end of that season. When you think back, despite the losses and how tough that year was, what was the biggest thing you took away from the 0-11 season and just that playing experience that you did get that year?
I took out that, like, football never changes. Like, offense are still going to run the same thing, you know what I'm saying? So it's always going to be tendencies you have to pick up on regardless of what you do. So film study has always been important for me.
And then you have all of those things where you film study. You go through that for a year. You go through fall camp last year. And it looks like, hey, you're going to be one of those guys that's going to be a mainstay on the back end, and you get that Liz Frank injury. Just describe the frustration of when you go through a fall camp and literally right at the very end when you can see the games. Unfortunately, you get some really hard news.
Yeah, so, like, with it being so unexpected, it was just something that was just never on my mind. Like, I got hurt, I said, ow, and I instantly tried to get up and start walking and playing again. So with that, I don't know if it broke my heart a little bit.
You mentioned it breaking your heart. Despite that, how did that whole process going through your rehab and being able to get back, how has that helped you now this year, now that you are playing, now that you are healthy? Why was that? Not that you ever would want to go through that again, but how did that whole process make you an even better Khalif Copeland this year?
Just knowing how to take care of my body, like what hurts, like what is to strengthen anything that hurts, or really the trainers too. I ain't gonna lie, the trainers, they really help. Kellen is an awesome trainer. Yeah, he helps real hands-on. It's just been great throughout my whole recovering process.
We've said that time and time again, whatever show it is or whatever we do, and I know at times maybe when fans hear that, they may not really understand it, but not to necessarily go into a ton of detail, but Kellen, of course, brings so much experience from his time with the Colts. He's obviously an ISU grad, a really proud Indiana State grad. He's got a great personality with himself, too, that he brings into the room. But where for him has he helped you specifically that you can tell, man, I can go out there, I can play free, because I know I got Kellen here behind me that's going to help me?
Just building my confidence back in myself, or like knowing I can plant off this left foot or do anything I could do before I got hurt, So that's really just been the confidence builder for real.
I'm telling you, I think there's sometimes, if Coach Mallory will allow me to, I think I got to film Kellen sometimes with you guys, because he goes through some drills too, some of the guys that are coming back, and I'm like, man, I want to see if Kellen North still has some eligibility, right? I mean, could he be a safety?
I don't know about the safety.
You don't know about that? You don't think he can fit in with the Stay Dangerous crew?
Oh, no, he ain't dangerous enough, you know what I'm saying?
He's not dangerous enough. Well, I got to tell you, Kellen watches this show every week, so you're probably going to have to answer that later on at Memorial Stadium.
It's okay.
It's okay?
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll have many of those conversations with Kellen. Mention the Stay Dangerous crew. That's what you guys always say before every practice. What do you like most just about the room you're with, Khalif, and just the guys that you get to interact with day-to-day, football side out of it?
It's a band of brothers, like, outside of football. We never, like, bypass each other without speaking, knowing how each other's day is going, making sure everyone's going to class, learning something. You're not just going to class and sitting there. You take notes. You just be, I don't know how to say it, like progressive. You never take steps back. Always move forward, you know what I'm saying? Keep a positive mindset throughout everything. You'll be fine.
And one thing for the fans that are here that don't maybe get the fortunate aspect that I do to be with you at each and every practice is you guys come out together each and every practice as a unit. Where other units will go out, they'll go out on their time. You guys wait for everybody, and you always go out together. How did that kind of start just with you guys in terms of the connection that you guys have and just making sure that you're together, not just away from the field, but you're together when you get on the field too?
Well, it started when Hook got here, you know what I'm saying? So he made sure we always come out together, like no one's left behind. Like we are brothers, we're going to move together step for step regardless of what happens. So that's really been big.
So he's the one that's been behind the Stay Dangerous?
Oh, no. Stay Dangerous, that's us. But, you know what I'm saying? Us coming out together. Yeah,
he's just the one that brings the cohesiveness together. Being able to win just this past weekend. Last year, you weren't able to play, and you weren't able to be a part of that 5-game win streak at the year. You were around the team, and, of course, you were a part of it, but you weren't able to play. So last weekend, now I'm actually just kind of coming to realization for you, that was the first win that you were a part of as a player during your time here at Indiana State. What was that moment like for you just to be able to celebrate and know that you were a part of it, and you were a part of it because you actually played in the game?
It was exciting. It was just like a relief, you know what I'm saying, a sigh of relief. Knowing that we can win, it's like something that you don't just wake up and do. Like you prepare to win every day, regardless of the situation, circumstances, you just go win. And that's what we did.
Coach Mallory talks with you guys all the time about how even though last year a lot of folks were excited about what you guys did, and deservedly so, winning 5 in a row, just barely missing the playoffs, but we haven't done anything yet. You want to be able to get into the playoffs. You want to leave no doubt this year. Despite not being able to get a win those first 2 weeks, getting the first win last week, why is this a group that can continue to leave no doubt, and why that reasoning before the year you guys had so much optimism, you can keep that and keep building that and become a better football team throughout the year?
I think we can keep building because we got the first one under our belt. So, like, we know what it feel like. So it's no steps back from here. We just keep pushing forward, getting better every week, and just take them down one by one.
I know the fans are probably wondering this too, because I called you. How long have you had the nickname Tank? Is that just an Indiana State? No, you've had it for a while?
I've had the nickname Tank since I was like 3 or 4.
3 or 4?
Yeah.
So what's the backstory behind it?
All right, so the real backstory is
so, we're here for the real backstory. We're not here for other backstories.
So like I was like a 3-year-old walking around with this size of head. So, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of irregular. So,
you do have a big helmet, too. You know that, right?
I grew into my head. You can't do that.
Well, now everybody knows why we call you Tank. But you're also Tank because you're a really strong guy out on the field. Khalif, thanks so much, man, for coming by the show tonight.
Appreciate it.
As Khalif Copeland, when we come back, Curt Mallory is here to preview Eastern Illinois this weekend. You're listening to Indiana State football from Sycamore Athletics.
This is Curt Mallory, and you're listening to Indiana State football on WIBQ 97.9 FM.
Big thanks to Josh Christensen, head coach of Indiana State women's swimming and diving, for joining us. Khalif Copeland, Kyle Hogue from Indiana State football. Here at the Indiana State Coaches Show, here at 7th and Elm, corner of food and fun. I'm Luke Martin, alongside head coach Curt Mallory, as we are here to wrap up the show and look ahead to this weekend, close the book on Eastern Kentucky, focus on Eastern Illinois. Kind of touched up on it with Coach Hogue too, rivalry games. This is exactly why you get into this sport, and it's what makes college football so great. Your team gets to add to that chapter of this long rivalry between two schools that are separated by just about 45 minutes.
Absolutely. We closed the book on it yesterday at 5:30, and it's time to move on. And we talked about what this game means. Obviously, two teams from two very good conferences, and the proximity of being 30 to 40 minutes away, and the history goes way back. But it's going to be a great week. It's going to start in practice tomorrow.
I know the biggest thing, these numbers can kind of get overblown a bit just because the series went on and off, or went off there for a little while. But last year was the first win that Indiana State's had in the series since, I believe, 2004, which is over a decade, obviously. Again, I said the series did take a little bit of a break there. But it's been a series recently that's been dominated by Eastern Illinois. I know they're going through a program rebuild right now with Coach Cushing, which it's a guy that you have a lot of respect for, and said earlier today in your press conference that Eastern Illinois hired the right guy for the job.
They did. I've got a lot of respect for Coach Cushing. I was with Coach Fitzgerald for a long time at Northwestern. I think everyone, the respect that you have for Northwestern and the job they've done, he's learned from the best. Coach Cushing will do a tremendous job at Eastern Illinois.
Brantley, who has been their starter so far this year, threw over 400 yards against us a week ago. Even though their offensive numbers this year right now, only one offensive touchdown through their first 3 games. Well, we saw a year ago what Brantley could do against us. No doubt he had some terrific wide receivers, but he's a terrific talent, and I know you're continuing to work with your guys that you're going to have your work cut out come Saturday.
Well, he's a proven guy, what he's capable of doing. It's our job defensively to try to, slow him down. We weren't able to slow him down a year ago. He threw for over 440 yards and, really went up and down the field on us. So we're going to have a heck of a challenge. Our defense, I know they're working at it right now, but our coaches and so forth. But, it's going to be a big challenge for us on Saturday, and I know we're looking forward to it.
I don't want to backtrack too much, but I do want to bring up, Big Tuna missed the game over the weekend, which allowed a guy like Jose Vasquez to step in and fill, I thought, did a masterful job on your offensive line. To see guys like Jose able to step in, fill a role like he did, which Tuna is not only does he fill a big role, he is a big guy on your offensive line. And it seemed like Jose, for the most part, you really couldn't tell, other than just the body sizes, that Big Tuna was not in on Saturday.
Well, I'll go back. We talked a little bit about Khalif. It's hard to play as a freshman. And, of course, we had a lot of guys play as freshmen 2 years ago. We didn't win many games. Yeah. But you get into your second year, and, your role starts to increase. And we've got some young men in the program whose roles have increased, and Joe Vasquez being one of them. You're seeing Dejon Collins, whose role has increased a little bit there, and Dwayne Thompson. You can go on and on, Davion Higgs, and you're seeing some guys that have really increased their role. And even though their time's going to still come, they still got a lot of football ahead of them. They got to be ready when their time comes.
And kind of circling back to Eastern Illinois, is there much change? I know the personnel, of course, it's just been a year, so not a lot can really change in terms of a year. But in terms of your scouting and you look back, is there a ton different in what Coach Cushing has brought in what you saw last year with the previous staff?
Well, there's some carryover, but, there's always a different element too, and, what he's carried on with him at Northwestern or from Northwestern. But there is some carryover. They're going to use some 11 personnel as they did a year ago. There's still a little bit of a spread. But, they're using what they call super back, which is a carryover from Northwestern, it's kind of a hybrid tight end / wide receiver who they utilize quite a bit. But they're going to be built on the run game, and of course they got a quarterback that can get the ball out there in a hurry and make some things happen.
Finally, Coach, where do you want to see your team make the biggest jump here after getting the first win last week?
Well, I think the thing we got to do is we got to be able to finish drives. We had too many drives die. We got to continue to do that. And then when we do have the opportunity to, get them stopped or whatever defensively, we've had them backed up a couple times. We can't let them get out. And just to increase that and to improve on those two categories, finish drives and, keep them, get the ball back to our offense so they get in the end zone.
Back at home.
That's great.
Another week at home this weekend before a bye week. But as you said, hey, you got to focus on this week,
Yep.
and that is what the focus will be starting tomorrow.
Well, it is. It's great to be back. We've had 3 weeks here in Terre Haute, and what a great schedule. And to have three home games in a row, we knew going into it we were going to have to capitalize. So can't do anything about the first one. That's behind us, but we can do something about this next one, and that's where we're going to get work to do.
Hey, and the biggest thing is we got all the Shermans here now.
That's
so,
right.
I mean, that's why the wins are coming.
That's
Coach,
right.
really appreciate the time, as always.
All right, buddy.
Once again, that was head coach Curt Mallory. Again, you can join us this weekend, Indiana State and Eastern Illinois on Saturday. Sycamores and Panthers. Kickoff will be at 1 o'clock. The Pepsi countdown to kickoff will be at noon. For Dennis Porter, back in our studios on Wabash Avenue, I am Luke Martin. For head coach Curt Mallory saying so long from 7th and Elm.